County Boom's been doing a great job, as everybody knows, with the fireworks, and they've been adding things to the show each year. Last year, we added the live sound system in the Bridgewater Park so that people could hear your audio stream live. And although very few people knew it, we had actually gotten approval for a flyover, but we were too late to be able to actually get an aircraft and a crew allocated.
Oh, okay.
So we started immediately on the plans for this year, and we had all the approvals, up through where we were about to look at what aircraft we could get to accept the mission when COVID hit. And so everything went on hold, of course.
Right.
And when we got into about the middle of May, the Air Force was looking at the missions that had been requested and were on hold, and this one was one that interested them. And at that point also, the Beaver County Boom Board was faced with the decision about the fireworks, which I think at this point people understand was the 10th anniversary fireworks show was canceled because of COVID and not wanting to have people congregate, and also because the small businesses that typically fund it, it's not a good time for them to be asked to donate.
True.
So we were debating and said, you know what, there's so much that people have done without that, there isn't a whole lot to look forward to with COVID and everything having been shut down. If the Air Force is willing and able to proceed with the flyover, how about if we do that and make it a celebration of the 4th of July? And that was the genesis for this idea. So with WBVP, WMBA stepping forward to do the broadcast of the patriotic music on the Star-Spangled Saturday, and then playing the national anthem, which was the Air Force's one request, that allowed us to create kind of a mini event so people can celebrate the 4th from where they are without congregating in one space. And that's how it really came about. And then Boom went ahead and was able to line up some fireworks, not the full 10th anniversary show, which is deferred till next year, but some fireworks to go up in the air on the 4th of July, which was a lot of scrambling after they had canceled everything and the word was out. So it's actually now 2 events. So they're being co-promoted by Beaver County Push, and we have the flyover happening tomorrow afternoon, and then we have the fireworks on the 4th of July.
And that's massive because the fireworks, as Mark from Push Beaver County, Mark Kopsak, mentioned at the meeting on Wednesday at the courthouse, for them to pull this off in a matter of like 2-3 weeks is miraculous. And the fact that we're going to get 2 events in Beaver County, out of, what was once one. And it's not going to be the same thing, obviously, as Boom would have been, but it's still something, and it's still a reason to celebrate Independence Day weekend and this, to celebrate summer here in Beaver County.
For people who were able to see the C-17 that flew over Beaver County for Memorial Day in 2019, this is going to be a very similar flight path. And so it still had to center around the Bridgewater Park because that was what was on the original paperwork that was done months ago. But the plan is for the planes to come in from the Ohio River at the I-376 bridge above Beaver, circle the confluence of the Beaver and Ohio rivers, and then continue on over Rochester as they break back out towards their bases.
So they're actually going to start on the bridge. They're actually going to
above the bridge in that area.
Above the bridge, okay. That was my first thought in all of this. Is that I was hearing that they were going to launch from the Beaver area, and that that they were going to start flying down Main Street and take off from there. And I'm thinking, how are they going to pull that off in that level of traffic?
No, actually, they're flying in from 3 different bases, and I'm not sure what their rendezvous point is, but they're coming together. We have 2 vintage P-51 Mustangs that are coming in, and we also have an F-22 Raptor that's coming up from Virginia.
Wow. We'll talk a little bit more about it because I know these planes have had a lot of historical significance. And we'll discuss that a little bit. We're talking with Tim Wetzel this morning about tomorrow's Star-Spangled Saturday that will be broadcast live on Beaver County Radio. We're going to take a small break, and we'll come back and finish the discussion about that. And
1860 WMBA.
And we're back on AM Beaver County. Matt Drzik in the morning with you here, talking with Tim Wetzel in studio, also on Facebook Live. And these planes that's going to be part of this flyover tomorrow, over the confluence of the Beaver and Ohio rivers. There's so much history behind these planes, and I'll ask you, what is some of the more interesting history behind these planes, and why precisely these planes for the flyover?
That's an interesting question, because it was something that we're thrilled about, and yet at the end of the day, it was really something that the Air Force came out and offered. The thing that I think is so cool for us here in Beaver County is that we have a lot of older residents in the county, and the P-51 Mustang, of course, has a rich history coming through its missions in World War II. And the two Mustangs that are scheduled for this flyover are both restored aircraft, and they were really part of that conflict. They have a very distinctive sound, which you guys captured in the radio clip that you prepared. And so that, I think, is pretty exciting to a lot of the veterans that we have. And the F-22 Raptor, of course, is the state-of-the-art fighter jet. If people have been watching about some of the intercepts that have been happening up above the Arctic Circle with some of the Russian aircraft, the F-22s have been in the news for that role. So to have both one of our newest supersonic fighter jets and the two vintage fighter jets from the World War II era is really pretty cool.
Yeah, and it showcases how history has, in a sense, repeated itself, but also improved upon itself. Because with a newer model, you have all the upgraded technology that was impossible with one of the old Raptors, but the old Raptors again still managed to be as powerful and as sound-worthy as ever, and it is going to be a fantastic thing to see. And you were talking a little bit off air about it, about some of the parameters that these planes can and cannot go through. So people are going to get a good look at these planes, but not bird's eye view, if you will, because there are rules and regulations.
In fact, one of the things that, and I haven't seen an F-22 up close and personal myself yet, so this is going to be very exciting, but from talking to one of the guys on the push board who is familiar with the aircraft, he says it's something that you're going to feel as much as hear.
Wow. Oof. I just felt that hearing that. It's just like, because anytime you feel that sound barrier break, it just, it sort of shakes your skin to the core. But, thrills like that is sort of, what the symbol of American freedom is all about. And speaking of celebration, obviously a lot of this is due to the fact that COVID happened and, people are still worried about, all of that. I imagine that if people are going to want to watch this tomorrow, whether they gather in Bridgewater or gather wherever, that there will be some guidelines put in place to follow. And is there going to be any enforcement of that, or any sort of oversee of that, or were we just hoping that people are smart enough to do that on their own?
We're encouraging people to do that on their own. Basically, one of the things that was so attractive about this to the Air Force was that we're not congregating people in one spot. And so that is consistent with the social distancing approach. And we were encouraging people to basically watch it from their homes, their yards, or to just get into the general area. I will point out, because I learned this when we had the C-17 flyover for Memorial Day last year, that because of the way the terrain is here in Beaver, 3rd Street, Route 68 going through Beaver is kind of down in the river valley. It's not very high above the Ohio River. And you have bridges, of course, on both sides, in Monaca Heights and up in Brighton Township. Because of the tree lines on those ridges, if you are up on those ridges, you're not likely to see these aircraft until they start to circle the confluence of the river. Because, at least in the case of the C-17 flyover, even though that's an enormous airplane, it was obscured below the treetops of the ridgeline for those of us up on the ridge. So if you are on the ridge line and want to see it, you probably do want to venture down into the Beaver Business District area, or over near the Giant Eagle or Northway Christian Community in Rochester to see the planes as they come across the railroad bridge and circle the confluence. So that's just kind of a word to the wise that is something I anticipate.
From experience.
Yes. And I asked the lead pilot how they managed to keep these aircraft together, because we've got two fast for their day, but certainly not as fast as the F-22 and the Mustangs, and we have the F-22. And he kind of chuckled and said, practice.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point. That it's just like, well, you have to wait for the Renegade and the new one to just slow down a little bit. You don't have to go that fast. We're celebrating. We have to go Mach speed, but no, it's not, our Mach speed is not yours. Mach speed. Just slow her down. Just slow her down. That's amazing.
What we are coordinating is that for people who tune in to WBVP, WMBA for your simulcast tomorrow, which I think is starting at
3:30, I believe.
3:30. 3:30 is going to be the actual center of the event. But,
so probably it will be 3 then.
But the Star Spangled Banner is people's cue to start looking at the sky, because that will start as the planes start their approach flying above 3rd Street. So listen for the Star Spangled Banner and then eyes to the sky.
Very nice, very nice, and that's great too, because it's a patriotic symbol to say, hey, here we are going to celebrate this great event that's going to happen, and oh, by the way, there's going to be some planes flying overhead. You may want to look out for those too, and we will be out there tomorrow. We're going to be stationed over at Lockwood Insurance Agency in Rochester for the broadcast, and like you said, 3:30 is when the flyover itself is going to take place. So we're going to have a lot of interviews lined up, and we're going to be talking to a lot of different people tomorrow, and it's going to be a very, very celebratory occasion.
I also would like to just point out that for people who may be interested, especially some of the younger people, if you're interested in information about the Air Force, there will be Air Force recruiters at your live broadcast site during at least part of the event tomorrow. And so the more information about that will also be coming out. We're trying to find out exactly what's going to happen on the 4th of July, because that has been kind of impromptu, if you will, to do those fireworks. But the Air Force is interested in having recruiters available, so that if there are people listening who are interested in that information, there will be the opportunity to talk to recruiters. And they've got some pretty cool toys to show people to.
Aside from the 3 flying in the sky, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I imagine someone, there's going to be at least a few kids looking up in the sky tomorrow and thinking, wow, what do I have to do to get into one of those bad boys? And that's not even realizing those can, possibly fire off some things. So,
well, here in Beaver County, I think we're particularly fortunate and kind of tuned into aviation, because at our community college, we have one of the top aviation programs in the United States. So This is a great place for kids growing up who have an interest in aircraft and aviation, because they can really get into that field very effectively right here in Beaver County.
That's true. And it's, like you said, they have the option of consulting with the Air Force tomorrow, because the recruiters will be there. But they also have the option of going into the less militaristic option of just simply learning about aviation and getting into the field, as it were, by going to CCBC, which is a very good point, too. Not to mention we have the Air Heritage Museum that reflects a very long and storied history of aircraft here in Beaver County and western Pennsylvania. So that's a very good point. I appreciate you bringing that up, because it is important to realize that we have those connections and those opportunities to get there at that point. So again, tomorrow, 3:30 is when the actual flyover is going to happen. We'll be broadcasting there live. I think they're going to start setting up down there. I believe it either starts at 1 or maybe a little earlier than that. But we'll have more details about that coming up throughout the morning here on Beaver County Radio. Frank Sparks will be out there. Mark Peterson's going to be out there. Malik Garrett will be out there. And I'm going to take a wild guess to say I'm going to be out there too after all things are said and done, because I'm actually going to start the morning over at Huffnagel and Majors in Zelienople. And we're going to have several guests on tomorrow as well during the broadcast at Lockwood Insurance Agency. Jack Manning, Tony Amadeo, Josh Kale, Sergeant Keeling will be part of that as well. So it's going to be a very, very fun day tomorrow. It's going to be a very awesome day. And hopefully, despite everything, and I'm sure this is probably one of the other reasons that it's nice for everybody to watch from their homes, is that some of these porches might have roofs on them, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the rain doesn't interfere too much tomorrow. But with jets of these size power, I don't think anything's going to interfere with those bad boys.
I know the one concern that I'm hoping we don't have to worry about is that if there's hail, two of these, the Mustangs are restored vintage aircraft, so they would be concerned about hail damage to those planes. So I'm just hoping we don't have anything severe that's rolling through.
Right, yeah. If it's going to be rain, make it a little.
Exactly right.
So.
But yeah, it should be a great event, and it's great that WBVP and WMBA have stepped up to support it in the way that you guys have. Thank you.
And we thank you, Tim, for joining us this morning to talk about it, and we look forward to tomorrow.